Hello and welcome to Let's Be Real About It, where we are real about real life issues. I am your host, Mildred Towns. Our disclaimer is that this is a no holds barred zone. Therefore, some of the contents of the show may be offensive to some, but that is not the intent of the show. The topics discussed tonight are from the story of Tamika Jones, shared on Let's Be Real About It in July of 2021. Let's Be Real About It does have Tamika Jones's consent to discuss her story. Therefore, we are not experts, we are not professionals on any subject matter that will be discussed tonight. We are merely expressing our thoughts, our opinions, and our life experiences. So, with that being said, I want to introduce to y'all our sponsor, J&K Style Grill.
What up, y'all? It's your boy back on stage. We here at J&K Style and Grill with my main man.
J&K Style Grill, home of the original waffle burger, stuffed wings, and Philly steak egg roll.
The food was amazing, man. I'm talking about collard green stuffed chicken, mac and cheese stuffed chicken, waffle burger with the special sauce.
With the special sauce.
Come on, man. What are you doing if you ain't eating here? You're wasting your life.
Pull up.
J&K Style Grill, you can copy the style.
But never the best.
We got it.
We got it.
And I just wanted to say also, if anytime y'all in the Virginia Beach area, please come by and support J&K Style Grill. They're known for the chicken wings, egg rolls, and burgers. So please stop by and introduce yourself and support. I want to introduce my guest tonight. My guest on the show tonight, we have Shanita Pittman and Juanita Lightfoot and Estelle Coffey. And so I'm gonna ask each one of them to go ahead and introduce themselves. And we'll start with you, Estelle.
Well, hello again. I would just like to say thank you, first of all, for giving me a seat at this table with all this power. I appreciate that. I feel honored to be here. And if I were to say anything about myself, the first thing I would say would be grandma. That is my favorite role, my absolute favorite role. Those critters are my first love behind only the Lord. That's my love behind only Him. Aside from that, God has given me favor with young people. So I've had the opportunity to minister to young people just through love and food. They come in my house, eat up everything. And I'm also privileged to be a part of a wonderful group of women. We call ourselves basketball moms, although I am a grandmom. But through that group of women, we get an opportunity to support young athletes, mostly high school athletes, travel with them as they play sports. And I get a chance to minister to them. And if I might say this online, just love the hell out of them.
Amen. 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 I know how that is with them grandkids, girl. I got 6 grandkids and 6 great grandkids, so I know how that long go. All right, Juanita.
Well, I'm Juanita Lightfoot, based out of Grand Blanc, Michigan. I find it an honor and a pleasure to be back on the show. So I'm so grateful. I can't wait to talk about this lovely woman, Tamika Jones.
Amen. Shanita.
Amen.
I am Shanita. I'm Mildred's niece and an avid listener of the show. And I'm also excited to discuss Tamika. Very powerful story. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you guys tonight.
Yeah, and I thank you guys for taking the time, out of your schedule to come tonight to discuss her story. And I thank Tamika for giving us permission to discuss her story. So the topic that we gave Tamika back in July when she was on the show was If My Feet Could Talk, because the time that we had on the show does not tell her whole story. So if her feet could tell her story, what would her feet tell? And her book, Brutal Courage, I tell you, that name by itself, Brutal Courage, because what this sister went through, it took courage. I mean, brutal courage to get through all that she went through. Just to give a little bit of background, Tamika, she was adopted by her mom's friend. She had 3 sisters, and she felt that she didn't fit in with the stepmom. Uh, she wanted her biological mom, and she became rebellious, a runaway teen, and she was finding love with men. But I want y'all opinion on something. Tamika made the statement because she knew who her daddy was, but she didn't know her daddy's name. So she made the statement. Uh, as I said, she knew who her daddy was, but she didn't know his name. But she wondered, would her life been different if he was a part of her life? Would her choices in men have been different, or how she interact with men? Would it have been different? Now, I feel that as a female, that dads play a major role, in our lives. Uh, they play a major role in the choices that we make, and how we interact with men. Now, my dad was in the house, and I knew who my dad was, and the men that I got involved with became just like my dad. They were just like my dad. So what's y'all opinion on that? Do you think that the dad really shaped your life for us, who you date, how you interact with men, and so forth, so on? We're going to start with you, Juanita.
So that's funny you said that because I took a little bit of notes within her story, and that was one of the notes I had pointed out. Was I remember her saying that she envied people who had a dad. And so I really feel like sometimes when it's something that you don't have, you're searching for it. You're kind of trying to fill that void. You're trying to feel that peace in it. So within my own life, I was on the other side of the spectrum. I had my dad in my life all the time, but I still felt myself in those wrong relationships. So it's like sometimes you could be searching for something and then keep hitting that dead end of what you're searching for because you're trying to mirror it to what you see other people having, but unfortunately, she kept running into those wrong relationships. But I do feel like sometimes that can play a part in the decisions you make when it's something that you feel like you're lacking, or if you feel like you have these and I know she said it like, oh, why me? Why is this my life? Why am I the one that's adopted? Why am I the one that don't know my dad? So a lot of times when we have these questions going on in our mind, and we have these voids. So when we have these voids, sometimes and the devil loves to play on those voids. When you have those voids, he will put something in front of you to make you think that this is it that will fill that void. When it's necessary, it has to come within. It's not going to come from another person.
And I would just like to say to the listeners too, I want to throw this in, that please feel free to interact with us. You can send your comments, and we try to acknowledge everybody that shows up, to let you know that we see you. We know that you're here. So please feel free to interact with us. Let's go to you, Shanita. What's your opinion on that?
I don't know. That's pretty tricky because, like Juanita was saying, that, you can have your father in your life, but I don't know how much, and then we don't know what type of man this guy was either.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much of I mean, he may have shown her something different. I don't know how much of, her life would have been different with her decision making, because you could be in the home with your parents and you could be you have a loving father, but you still have desires.
Right.
And, they may not line up with what people would think somebody who has a loving father, should desire. So I think to some degree it does impact you. I don't think you'll always necessarily marry someone like your father,
Mhm.
or you get involved. I don't think you always get involved with somebody like your father. I think that happens occasionally, but I don't know. I think it's just where you are and what type of charm the guy's bringing to the table. She
Mhm.
talked about the guy being charming. He could be charming. That could be the thing that you're looking for, a charming man, and totally different from your dad. So I'm not exactly sure about that one.
Okay. SL?
Well, I do agree with Shanita to a point, but I have to believe that if he had been present it would have changed, it would have impacted her in some way, because it's like adding another piece to the puzzle. So I believe it would have shaped or reshaping her life in some factor, in some way. But her story struck a chord with me when she talked about her father, because when I was very young, I had two traumatic experiences, both of them with males in my life. When I was 6 years old, I had a very close relationship with my father until then. But when I was 6 years old, my mother passed at the hands of a man. And then my grandmother took us away from my home. And so I lost my dad at the same time. So both of those were very traumatic experiences for me. And at that time, and I didn't realize it until I was an adult, something in me sort of broke at 6 years old. And I didn't realize until way in my adulthood that psychologically I began to act upon my feelings and my there was a certain venom in me where men were concerned. So I have to think that the presence or the absence or even the sudden loss of that father figure definitely would have impacted her in some way. And as Shanita said, we may never know what way that was, but I believe that it fully would have impacted her in some way.
Okay. And this was another thing that I want y'all opinion on, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys. She said that sex was her drug of choice because we feel that sex is love, and we confuse the two. And to someone, I agree with that, because a lot of people look at, if I'm having sex with you, then that means that you're in love with me or you loving me, and it's a major difference. Sex is sex. Love is love. Now I can be in love with you and make love to you if I'm in love with you, but I can love you and have sex with you. That doesn't mean that I'm in love with you. And I think a lot of times that it does get confusing, because because a man has sex with you, that don't mean that he's in love with you. So we're gonna let's start with you, Shanita. What's your opinion?
Yeah, there again, that's pretty huge. I think sex is an emotional act, but I've heard of many people that doesn't, they don't connect it to emotions at all. I think it's interesting that she called it a drug, though. It was something that she longed for and something that gave her comfort. However that goes, and maybe that was something that she, the only way she knew how to get that comfort at the time, and it gave her some, whatever she needed. Um, Although, that's not the best way to go, but that's how she coped, you know. But no, I don't think that sex and love always, it's different for everybody.
Mhm.
Now, with me, I had a mother who taught me what love and being romance and all of that is about. My mom taught me about ladyhood, so I connected the two. But I learned real quick that everybody don't look at it like that. you
Mhm.
know, some
Mhm.
people are just enjoying themselves while you're trying to be in love. And so
So true.
more times than often. So, but I understand where she was coming from.
Mhm.
She just wanted that closeness, that intimacy.
Mhm.
And I think that's what she went after more so. I don't know if it was a thing of love, but more so intimacy and to be wanted, being wanted, especially with being adopted, just desiring to be wanted by somebody. That could have been a major thing. Maybe not love, but you know,
Yeah, because that was
desire.
one of the things that she said, that she wanted, that she was missing that love, that she wasn't getting, that she was missing that love. Yeah. Estelle?
I don't think one thing has anything to do with the other.
Mhm.
I think that love is something that is so deeply within us, and it is expressed in so many ways other than sex. I think sex is just a benefit. if I can say that. It's a benefit that we get as a result of being in a relationship. It's just a benefit. But I don't think that I think men and women see sex totally different. I
Mhm.
think they see the act of sex totally different. But I do understand where she was coming from when she said it was her drug of choice because she was chasing something. And
Mhm.
that's what drugs do. They make you chase something. You're looking for that first high. I'm always told that a person who is drug addicted, they become that way because they want that first high, which they never get. They say they never get that. So I think she was chasing that desire. And the only way that she knew to express that was with her body. And she confused the reciprocation of okay, you want to give it to me, I'm gonna take it. She confused that with love, with what she needed. And so like all of us, we chase something, we need something, we desire something. And if we don't fully understand how to get it, then we go for what we think we understand.
Mhm. Juanita?
So I like how she said it as it being her drug of choice, because within my background of right now working in drug rehabilitation, I understand when a person uses a drug, they're trying to release, they're trying to not think about their issues, they're trying to not think about what it is that they're going through. It's a release from the reality. So her sex being her drug of choice, it was her choice to open herself up to people in order to release what it was that she was going through. So it may not have been anything going into her body, but she was using her body as a release from whatever it is she was going through. And so that can be understood, especially when it starts at a young age. Just if you equate that to a person that starts doing drugs at 13, they may not understand what it is they're doing, but once they get that first time of doing it, they understand that they have this moment of not even thinking about their problems. So yeah, you're in this relationship, this person might have just blacked your eye, but because of you're laying in this bed with them, now it's a release from whatever it is that y'all were going through. You might go back to that once the high is done over with, you're going to go back to the fighting and the arguing, all that, but it's just that it's for that moment, it's a release from it, that there's that none of that is going on at that moment. They're not arguing at that moment. There's no fighting at that moment. There's no thinking about the situations at home. There's no thinking about not being with your mom. There's a release from your reality. So now you're in a different stage. And so you want it more. You want, that's your drug. You want to continue to be in that place of that feeling that sex drives you to. Same way where drugs do, same way alcohol do. It takes you away from what your reality is, even if it's just for a moment. But it's just a point to when it's over with. Now you done had your orgasm, whatever, and you got to go back to reality. That your life
Mhm.
is still the way it is. And so it's like sex is very addictive, even if it's not with the person you need to be with, even if it's not protected, even if it's in bad situations, even when it may be a situation where she's being forced upon. But it's just that it started so young that now
Mhm.
your body is used to it and now your body wants it even when you don't even want it. Your
Mhm.
mentality, you don't even want it, but your body wants it because you started so young. Same way, it's like I just said, if you were actually on drugs or if you just actually started drinking at a young age, you're getting an itch for it, you need it because you started so young and now your body wants it. It has to go through that detoxing period in order to separate it from it. And so she had to continue to do it because she was answering the desires of her body. And
Desire.
yeah,
And,
it was that desire.
Mhm.
and like I said, the acceptance of it, somebody want you,
Yes.
and it's interesting because, you hear they call it booty calls, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And, women get out of bed because they're excited. He
Yep.
wants to be with me.
Mhm.
And, it can be so confusing. But I think, in my world, it is an expression of love.
Mhm.
To me, it is an expression of love, and it's really connected, you know. But I can understand how it could be disconnected, and in so many people's minds, it's a disconnected thing. But to me, it's that expression. I'm giving you a part of me that's so intimate,
Mhm.
and I think that she wanted that level of intimacy, and for them to desire her, it made her feel wanted,
Mm.
because she was on the search for love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So does anybody else have an opinion on that? If not, Shanita, what that anything that you got from her story, part one, part two, that stood out to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about, as a teenager, the things that really called at her. She talked about being in the suburbs, and, her sister and all of them lived in, I guess the city area, the urban area. And just that teenage compulsion. Compulsion is that thing that just kind of overrides you, regardless of whether you feel like, maybe you feeling in your mind, this ain't really right, but you do it anyway because your mind isn't thinking about, I shouldn't be doing this, right? It's that teenage compulsion. And she talked about those things that were just calling her. It was calling her so much that she would just, run away.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to be a part of this thing. It was what was happening. And, when you're a teenager like that, and I understood what she said. I remember, of course, I'm from Georgia, and we lived in, they called it the country. We lived in the country, in the neighborhood. But I remember just going to the projects and everybody just hanging out on Rome Street, and how exciting that was to just be amongst that. And I remember people would say, what are you doing here? But I'm thinking, man, this is where it's at, boy. Everybody's out here. We're hanging out and having a good time. And I understood where she was coming from. You just want to be a part of that excitement where everybody's hanging out and everybody's doing all kinds of things, right? Um, and she got caught up into that because, at that age, your mind isn't reasoning. The reasoning isn't there unless somebody's there to instruct you on, you don't need to do this and give you the reasons why. You still may do it anyway if they paint the picture of these are the consequences, right? But yeah, I thought it was interesting just to see how that came forth within her. And she couldn't seem to help it, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Now she made the statement that she enjoyed, and I want to say hey to Deborah as well. Hey, Deborah, Drusilla, hey. Thank you for making it, Deborah. Okay. Anybody else got a comment on Nita?
Oh, you said on what she just talked about on her
Yeah, what she
story?
just talked about.
I feel like within that, within like she was talking about with the runaway, it was more like a domino effect. It was like this happened, then this happened, then this happened, this happened. And so it was so much within her story. It was like every time she spent, I was like, oh, for real? Like, girl, you made it out of that. Like every
That's
time
that brutal courage, girl.
like, oh my God, girl. Like, I promise you, I'm like, really? Like, but it's like within her whole story, I was smiling because I'm seeing how beautiful she is right now on the inside and
Yeah.
out, and just being able to see that God truly gets the glory out of her life
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
everything that she went through and to see her still standing. And so it's like I wrote my own little. I know she had a. You already gave her a topic for her story, but I gave my own topic. It's not about where you start, but where you finish. And
Oh,
so
Yes.
it's
yes.
like,
Yes.
although her story started, you would think very dark, and you would just think, oh, she's gonna be another statistics. Oh, she gonna just be another story, another sad story. That's what you would think. But it's
Mm.
like God gets the glory, her being an author, a business owner, just having this joy within her, not letting the devil pull her down from everything she's been through. is just like so inspirational. And so that's I'm like, even though it was a domino effect and you would have thought that all her cards would have been thrown out on the table, no, she was able to flip that whole thing around.
Yeah,
Yes.
So it's just
yes.
like I was like, oh my God. Like for real.
Mhm.
But the part that really and it's crazy because I just seen an article on a similar story about the young man that passed away from her stabbing. I think did she say the shoulder?
She
Mm-hmm.
I
stabbed
can't
him in the
remember.
shoulder.
Mhm.
Yeah, the shoulder. And so it was a similar story I just read that happened here in Michigan. And it was a young lady that was trying to get away from her abuser. And they it was I mean identical to T. She was pregnant, all this stuff,
Wow.
and she was being abused. It was some people in the house and all that. So she stabbed them and she ended up fleeing the scene. And so he was still alive when paramedics came, but by the time they got to the hospital, he refused treatment and he ended up dying. And so
Mhm.
he she ended up getting just like a few months in jail and then was released. And so I guess that was my question on like I just wondered in my head like wow, like why wouldn't they consider that as self-defense? Like why would they hold her? I think did they she said 3 years she was in
Mm-hmm.
She
jail.
was
Mhm.
facing 20, but I think she did 3. And then think about it
Yeah,
too. I mean, she was pregnant when she was in there and had the baby.
right. So it's like that's part I'm just like really like you have this woman but she's so strong. And so it's like
Mhm.
I honor that strength because these are situations where the ad this is not for the weak. Her story is not for the weak. That's one thing I
Mhm.
can say. So it's like it more than anything, it's like she's a person I would love to meet. I take my hat off to her because she has been through some things to where I really want that brutal courage book because her
Yes.
courage is like it. She has some strength beyond what I feel like I could have went through. But honestly, I just say she, but God. That's all I can say for her story. But God.
Yes. Estelle.
Mhm.
First of all, the things that she went through are almost unimaginable.
Mhm.
And as I was watching her tell her story, I watched it a few times, and both times I was equally impacted as if watching it the first time. It was like, yes, 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 yes. But I saw such a light in her. It was amazing. It was utterly amazing. Her spirit, her energy, everything was positive.
Mhm.
Kept thinking about this song that I heard, and it's called Girl Crush. And the singer was talking about another female, but the woman was so awesome that she was saying, I got a girl crush because she is just this awesome. It had nothing to do with homosexuality. It was just kudos to this powerful woman who's got it,
Mhm.
everything that I wish I had. And I kept thinking about that song, like, man, I got a girl crush when I was listening to her. But there was a thread that I heard both in both segments that was so powerful to me, and I wrote it down. I heard it in both segments, segment one and segment two, and I heard her talking about I decided. I
Mhm.
decided. She at one point she
Yep.
said, I chose to take the labels off.
Mhm.
And she said, I decided to make another choice, to deal the cards again. She was making statements like that. And
Mhm.
she was saying she made the choice to live. And she talked about how for 20 years of her life, she just things were so bad, she just wanted to die.
Mhm.
And it came to a point where she made a decision. And not only did she make a decision, she started doing the work. It was like I could almost see her just rise up in her spirit and decide no more, no more. This is
Mhm.
not going to be my life. And she made a decision that I am enough. And
Mhm.
I thought that those were such powerful statements that she made. And I thought about, as I said earlier on, how I have this ministry with young people. And I began to kind of look around in my mind's eye of all the young men and the young women, and especially young women, don't realize that they are enough. And so they make decisions based on how much they think they physically have to offer. And they walk around and you could see it all over them. Like, I'm only boobs and behind. You can see it in their body language. And I thought, man, do they need to hear this story and how powerfully she just took the position that I am enough. And I'm going to make a decision to just, and she said it so simply. She said, just deal the cards again. Just
Yes.
deal the cards again. Like,
Yes.
just that simple. And I wondered, man, when did she recognize that? I wonder, when did she realize that she was enough? And when did she realize that she had all this power after all those years, that really I've got the power? And she took possession of her life. She took responsibility for her own life. And I so admire that.
Yes.
Our young women right now, and our young people especially, I realize that they want certain things. They think they can have it because they say it. Now, she said it and she felt like she could have it, but she got up and she actually began to do the work.
She
They
did the
think
work.
that they can have it, but they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
They don't
And
want.
look at,
Go ahead, darling.
you're saying something that I had written down about. I know she had went to Mildred's workshop, and Mildred was talking about bringing forth new fruit. And so you're hitting up on that, that new fruit, because, like you said, you can stay in that same, dead end road, right? You can stay on that same road, or like Tamika, she got tired. That woman was tired. She was so tired. The tiredness is what landed her in prison in the first place. Like, you hit me, I'm tired. So we're dealing with a woman that said, I'm tired of living like this. I got to make some changes. And so, that new fruit, like you said, you can start over at any time, anytime, producing new fruit. This girl went back to school. If you saw this girl, you like you guys said, you wouldn't even know. When they say you don't look like what you've been through, this woman right here is the epitome of that. She does not, she doesn't even sound like what she's been through. Like, if she was just telling me that story, I'd be like, girl, you tripping. What movie you been watching? But this woman stands so solid footed in her truth, in her wholeness. And like you said, the work, she had to face some things. She went to this, 12-step program because she was addicted to her past.
Wow. And that
Like, what in the world? You went to a 12-step program because you're addicted to your past. Now, we talked about that, Mildred talked about the new fruit at her workshop. That's one of the best ways to start reproducing, right? How many people that don't live in their past? To see somebody that's walking, yes, that was me, but this is who I am today. People are constantly, I remember when you did this, I remember that, but this chick said, I changed my name, I let go of,
yes.
I walked away because she wanted wholeness so bad that she did the work.
You know what I
She did
like
the
about her
work.
too? When she went to prison, because the thing about it, she just stabbed the man in the arm to get him off of her. You know what I'm saying? And he died. When she got to prison, she said she looked around and realized, I'm different.
Yes.
That she was like these people that's here, I'm not supposed to be here. She was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I made an honest mistake because, as she said, her stabbing this man because he was abusive to her wasn't a malice intent, to it. She just stabbed him to get him over her. She looked around like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be in this place. I'm different.
She wasn't a murderer.
She was
a tired woman.
Yes. Yes.
She
And
was tired of being abused.
one thing I would say, even though within her life it was taken through a lot of dark valleys, one thing I did pay attention to was that she said that her adopted mom had always had them in church, introduced her to Jesus. I think that was her exact word. She said her adopted mom introduced her to Jesus. So even though I feel like within her younger life, she might have been taking a blind eye or had her, like you would say, headphones on to her mom or her teachings from her mom, those things were still instilled in her. So the hand of God was on her at a very, very young age. So although she kept running away from her destiny, running away from the path that God wanted her on, it took her through some dark valleys. It took her into some mud, but it just showed right there that God was on her all this time. So like you just
Mhm.
said, Mildred, it was when she said, I'm different. And that's because the glory of the Lord was in her this whole time. He just
Mhm.
wanted her to say that, hey, I'm here. I'm here to protect you, not to have you in these relationships with these men that don't care nothing about you, not to have you in these dark valleys or in these places where you shouldn't be. You need to be here with me, focusing on me. And so I just feel like it was like a coming to Jesus moment, literally in prison, where she just had to come to herself. And so within, just like the prodigal son, he came to himself. And when he came to himself, he came to know, like, I need to get home to my father. That's where my help is. And so that's where she was able to understand that, you know what, it's time for me to get it right for my children. It's time for me to get it right for myself. It's time for me to get it right for me to have a future. And so it was just really her getting to his place of being alone. It's an unfortunate situation, but a lot of times God allows us to go through these things so that our face is to the wall. And when our face is to the wall, that's when he can get us alone and actually speak to us. I feel like if the story was different and if that man would have stayed alive, she would have went back to the same situation. It would have been just a
Mhm.
revolving door. But it had to come to a point for her to be alone at that wall. That man had to pass away. Things had to happen the way it did. Like God is God for a reason. So those things had to play out that way in order for her to face that wall. And when she faced that wall, that's when Jesus would be able to show himself to her. And I feel like those pieces fell in place perfectly at that moment.
Yeah, because one of the things that she said was that even the guards told her this at prison, that sometimes, you have to get out of population to save your
Mhm,
own life.
Yep,
mhm, mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, and her life was saved. You
Mhm.
would think that going to prison would be a loss, but it was really just a pause. It was just a time of a pause so that she could, as Juanita said, so that she could come to herself.
Mhm.
And I thought about how much she loved her husband. She lit up as she was talking about him on that
Girl, yes.
Mhm.
when he was talking about him. She just lit up. She still had a glow about herself when she thought about him. But I thought about how she talked about how he helped her to heal, how
Mhm.
he was there, and that could have been the only purpose for
Yep.
him to even be there. He was just an instrument that God used
Yeah.
to help her to heal. And now that you're healed in this area, his work here is done.
Yep.
His
Yep.
work is done.
Exactly.
Move him on out of the way. And so many times we hold on to temporary things
Yeah.
that were never meant to be permanent, that were never meant to be to last. People who are in our lives for a specific purpose, for a specific period of time, and then they're meant to go on. And we can sometimes hold on to them so tight that it becomes detrimental to our own well-being.
Mhm.
But I love the way she said, if you could see right now, I think she said 25 postcards right here talking to me about me, telling me how great I am, telling me how beautiful.
Yeah.
And she had enough wisdom in her. And the Lord was close enough to her, whispering in her ear and telling her, okay, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And looked at the results of what
Mhm.
happened. And I thought about how one time I felt like I heard the voice of the Lord speak to me about the things that we go through. Some of us or some people go down a path and live, whereas another person could go down that same path and it could be the very end of them. Some of the things that this young woman went through, it appears horrific, but look at the end result of it. Look at the power in it. Look at the light. She went down a very, very dark path and came out with light. Now, who
Yes,
can
she
do
did.
that? Lord, nobody.
Right.
She definitely displays thou shalt not die but live to
Yeah.
declare the works of the Lord. And she just, to me, it's like she refused to drown even when the husband left. I'm not going to drown. It's hard for me to let you go. And like you said, this guy, what he brought into her life, she still, you could tell that she still is so grateful for him. She said,
Yeah.
we had some real great years together. And she acknowledged the great times that they had together, what he brought into her life. So you could tell that she doesn't have that animosity.
Mm-hmm.
She understood him. And so that enabled, and she even told him, and I was really impressed with her when he had started wanting to go out. She was like, go enjoy yourself, just be respectful. I'm not trying to hold you down. I'm just enjoying being with you. She wasn't trying to control his life or anything. She had gotten beyond all of that. She was just in a totally different place. And I love when she said, I was a great wife.
Yes.
She put it down on that man. So she realized it wasn't me, it was him. It wasn't me. It wasn't me that was the problem, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, she really gathered herself. It was like piece by piece, she was
Amen.
gathering parts of herself back. Every event, everything, everybody that came into her life, everything they brought into her life, she'll get a little bit more of herself back through all of these different relationships, a little bit more of herself to where now she's standing in wholeness.
Yes.
Life still happens to everybody, but this woman has a wholeness that projects when she speaks.
Yeah.
Very powerful woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing that she said too, that even though her husband had a mistress that was 6 doors down from her, who was possibly pregnant, she said, I was willing to just say, because I was so in love with this man. And another statement that she made, that she had put him before God. But what she was saying, I'm willing to be a stepmom to this baby that this man had, because that's just how much she loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And she took her vows seriously. She said for better or worse, and she took that seriously.
She took it seriously.
She took it seriously. And she had such a humorous way of expressing the most serious things. Because now here we are, you down the street and you talking about you about to have a baby by my husband.
Doors down.
You got explaining to do. She said, we're gonna go see about this. We're gonna go see about this. And even that turned out that it did not become a burden, because you bring a child into a relationship, it is going to put a weight on that relationship, no matter how much you love that man and how much you love that baby. It's going to put some weight on that. But even in that, she was willing to bear that burden for the love of her husband. And God even delivered her out of that situation. Like, no, we're not even gonna put this on you. We're not gonna put this on you. But her willingness is kind of like Abraham, or who was it that went up the mountain with their son? It wasn't him.
Abraham.
It was Abraham.
So he went up the mountain and he was willing to make the sacrifice. And in the midst of that, God delivered and he provided a way out for him, but he was willing. And sometimes it's just our willingness to do the hard thing. And God will reward us greatly. We won't even have to do the hard thing. But, sometimes it's already done in a picture. Once you make the decision in your heart that I will, if God requires this of me. And she was so willing, and she was so rewarded for her heart.
And Kurt,
Mhm.
thank you for being a part of Let's Be Real About It. You know, you can see your comments, but thank you. We just want to acknowledge you. Uh, so yeah, you know, she learned to take ownership. She said, "I take ownership of my decisions," and that spoke to me too. How often do I take ownership of my decisions? You know, it takes a lot to take ownership of your decision because so many times we'll say, well, if it wasn't for this one, I wouldn't have made this decision. If it wasn't for my dad, if it wasn't for my mother, if it wasn't for my sister, my brother, I wouldn't have made this decision. If it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't have made this decision. You know, taking ownership of your own decisions.
And I'll say
That's
that's
powerful.
where wisdom comes in.
Mhm.
That's where once again God gets the glory in this, because within God He gives you wisdom. And so it's not a point of holding it or putting it off on other people, or even just acting like it didn't happen. You know, everything, once again, she's overcome by her testimony. So being able to speak on it and being able to put it out there and say, you know, it happened, but let me tell you what lessons I learned from this. Okay, yeah, it
Mhm.
happened, but let me tell you what's the outcome of it. So just like she was saying about her husband was a lesson in her life. Yeah, there it might have been some things that happened in that marriage that you would think is not a thing you want to go through in a marriage, but there's a lesson from it. So not to just say, oh, well, this didn't happen, or try to cover up or sweep it under a rug, but it there's where you have growth. That's when you not no longer being in denial of it. That's the difference between a person that is ready to move on and being able to be strong about it, or that weak-minded person. That weak-minded person would, like I just said, would say that it didn't happen, or would lie about it, or manipulate the situation. But a person that can be real about it and say, you know what, it happened, but this is the outcome of it. This was the solution. You know, I'm a little bit wiser because of it. I've grown a little bit because of it. I can help someone else because of it. I can make sure this don't happen to me again because of it. It's something we learn from these lessons from back there. You know, we're not holding on to it, but it's just a point to within releasing of it, releasing it off of us. We're humble enough to say we went through it, and now we're gonna know better. We're gonna do better.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. That's where
Anybody else's opinion on that?
her time to tell ministry comes in. She talked about time to tell. And
Mhm.
Lord have mercy. You know, I've said, made the statement before. I said, you know, there are some things in my past I'm gonna take to the grave with me. Nobody gonna know but me and Jesus. That's all. But she's right when she says it's time to tell, because my opening up and telling not only releases me of it, but it could also be the very thing that releases someone else from that same bondage that they're held in. So
Mhm.
I like the fact that she said she was a part of a time to tell, and I believe she called it a ministry. She called it a
Mhm.
Mhm.
ministry. Um,
Mhm.
and and so yeah, I had to give that some real thought and dig deep and say, girl, you better let it. Can you let it go? Can you tell it? Can you tell it? You know. But you know, Scripture tells us that there's no condemnation to them who are in Christ Jesus. And as you said, Juanita, you know, we overcome by our testimony and by the blood of
Mhm.
the Lamb. And there's some things I obviously have not overcome, because I'd be like, stay dead, stay dead, stay dead. But you know, stuff like this young woman's testimony, you know, she wakes those things up. And you know, when I guess when they wake up, it's time to give them up, and you know, time to tell.
Mhm.
Shanita?
Well, I think it was interesting too that there are those things that she said she asked God to just take away from her. Some of the memories, when in connection to the guy and his family and all. She didn't even remember some names and all. Um, and like you said, some things you need to take with you, and some things you need to drop off. Um, it's because sometimes things happen that's so traumatic that God releases us from it. He
Mhm.
Mhm.
just we're able to just take those layers off. And like you said, some stuff, if it's dead, stay dead. You know what I mean? Because some things you can raise up, and it pulls too many roots.
Right.
It
Mhm.
pulls up too many roots. And so, like you were saying, talking about that wisdom, the wisdom to know when, the
Yeah.
wisdom to know how. the wisdom to know who to share it with.
Right.
I think is so important. I don't think, and it's, there could be some people, maybe his family, that could hear her story and not hear it from her point of view.
Right.
But she's sharing it. She's reaching so many people who just has challenges in their lives. And you hear her story and you're like, man, I can make it.
Mhm.
I can make it through this, and man, like I said, some stuff, this woman just represents to me wisdom.
Mhm.
Like you said, now is the time. This is the stage. She wrote this book about her courage. She's standing flat footed in it. She has reinvented herself. Beautiful woman,
Beautiful.
love the Lord. You can tell her standards are raised. She's not going to take just any old man just because you got britches on, right?
I know, right?
Amen.
You know?
I'll tell you,
Go ahead.
you
I'm
know,
sorry.
to have been a part uh, of her life, she walked into the workshop, you know, uh, shared her story with the people that was there, and the room was full of people. She shared her story, and me and her just been connected, ever since. And I thank God that I can say I'm a part of her life, and to know that now she's written her second book, part of a second book, and it's just I don't even have words, y'all. I don't even know the words to even say, to be a part of somebody's life, to know that you had a part in seeing somebody grow, have a part in seeing somebody's life, just move forward. And I
I
just
wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention that because I think that was so powerful, because she talked about when you guys met, she was still with her husband.
hmm
Um, so she was able to take some of the tools that you gave to her in this workshop, and there again push through after the husband decided to go a different route. Um, and so, these workshops are very powerful. I know they have one, I think in Virginia, where the women just go in and just beat on an old car. And you had the women, boxing and looking in the
hmm
mirror. When you put that mirror in front of you, you have to be honest with what you see. You got to be honest with what you see. I remember going through a period of time when I would just look in the mirror and say, hey girl, you talking about owning up to yourself. Tamika said, she had to say, hey, this was on me. Owning your stuff, your what you put into it. And the different things that you brought to these women through this workshop. And I Heard Ministries, so powerful, so powerful. Sometimes you really do need to put on those boxing gloves,
hmm
and you need to punch something out. Like you
Yeah,
were saying before, Esther, getting it out. Get
yeah,
this out of me. That thing that can destroy you.
hmm
Right.
Yeah, and Tamika, we thank you for showing up
yeah.
and listening. We thank you for being a part and allowing us
Hi,
to
Tamika.
talk about your story. So we just really appreciate you, girl. She said, "Hey,
Hi.
ladies."
Oh,
But I like how she just said
Hello.
God is able. And that's
yes,
where it's like that God is able. And it's like if she was to talk to her old self, that would be the message to her 14-year-old self, is to show her that God is able. God is able to pull you out of that broken place. God is able to feel every void in your heart right now. God is able to pull you through. God is able to pull you out of the mud. God is able to pull you away from these situations and away from these men that don't do you no good. God is able to do exceedingly abundantly all that we
yes,
can hear,
yes,
ask, or think.
absolutely,
So
yes,
Absolutely.
that can be an absolute message in
yes,
itself for her life, is
yes,
that God is able to turn that whole situation around. Because I'm pretty sure, like I can't, what she said, they used to call her a Cincinnati hoe or something like. I can't
yes,
remember.
hmm
yes,
So it's like those people that put those labels on her. those people that put titles on her and thought that that's the way she was going to be all her life. And so those people that counted her out, those people that probably would have was in a jail cell next to her that probably was talking junk like, yeah, girl, you in here for murder, you going down for 20 years. All those people that put all those labels, all those titles saying this is who you are. And God is like, no, I'm able to pull her out. No, I am God, that I'm pulling her out of this.
Yes.
Y'all hear the preacher in her, don't you?
That's it. That's why, in Esther, your ministry with teenagers, man, that is so huge because there again, teenagers have a certain compulsion, and to be able to be there for them and say, hey, I understand this. I understand you have these desires. I understand this is calling you. Some of these things are normal, and to have somebody there to guide the teenagers and not say, oh, they bad, they're fast, he's mannish or whatever. Look at this woman, all the things she started out doing as a teenager. And now she's a business owner and author. She's conquered so many different things.
Yeah.
It is such a privilege and such an awesome experience to be able to see them, because the one thing that I found is kindness. Kindness goes a long way with young people. Love, because people are quick to judge them and count them out. Really. And so a lot of what I'm finding in them is just as Tamika, it's something that people have put on them and they've decided, okay, why try? And they become that. And all it really takes is someone to take the time to say, I love you. Be patient with them. I mean, sometimes they're in my house and they from the basement to the upstairs bedroom. They all over the floor, all over everything. They come through my kitchen, wipe out like piranhas, treat me like a Hebrew slave and a maid and a butler and all of that.
Yes.
And with joy, recognizing it's a privilege. I always want them to feel like I want you here. So I get to teach them
That's
how to
wonderful.
themselves when they're faced with the world. When people come against you in a wrong way, I get to teach them you're a king, you're a queen. Yeah. And you see them gradually transform into that.
Yes, somebody believes in them.
And that's all they really need. That's all they really need, is to know that someone sees me in a different light. And if you tell them that enough, and if you treat them differently enough, they will conform to a different image. They really will. And so I found it to be such a privilege to be a part of that. Be a part of that.
So y'all, our time is running up. I just wanted to say, Successor Juanita, is it you're a youth minister or youth pastor? Juanita.
I'm youth director, but I just transitioned to
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
So I would love, Tamika said, our stories are needed because people want to hear from people who have been exactly where they are. Amen. So I would love for y'all one day to meet Tamika. In person, invite her to some of the youth things that you all be having. Tamika, how they can get in contact with you. If she's listening, maybe she's not listening. But anyway, hopefully she'll post it. So y'all, I just want to thank y'all for coming tonight. It has been a blessing. I have been so blessed. To sit among greatness. It has been a blessing. I know y'all was blessed, and I know those listening and participating was blessed. Did she put up that? Tamika Edwards Jones at gmail.com. So y'all can contact her and invite her to some of the things that y'all having with y'all youth, because she got a story to tell, and plus she got 2 books out here, and people order her book, get her book, bless her, be a blessing unto her. Thank you, Tamika, for allowing us to discuss your story tonight.
Thank you,
I
Tamika.
just want to say to all y'all, do y'all have anything y'all want to say to Tamika before we go? Because we're right at 1 minute.
Wonderful, strong woman of God, and with no battle scars.
Yes.
All right. Well, as I said, I want to thank y'all for sharing y'all opinion, y'all thoughts, and y'all life experience. So let's be real about it. I want to say to those of y'all who listen, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, I Heard Ministries, 4.22 Guest Towns. And I want to thank those who watched the show nationally and internationally for watching the show tonight. All y'all who participated in the show tonight, you're welcome, girl. Tonight. I want the world to meet Tamika because she got such a
Yes.
story to tell y'all. Please contact Tamika for y'all youth department when y'all having some. Please contact her. And so far, y'all, three people that have been a guest on the show, and Juanita is one. You know that God is just sending out. Drusilla said, "Say this was an awesome topic, and I have certainly enjoyed and answered some questions for me. Congratulations on your journey, Tamika."
Yes.
So y'all, I'm gonna have to go. So until next week, may the peace of God reign, rule, and abide in your hearts. I'm Mildred Towns. Thank you for watching.